Good morning, everybody, and you're very welcome back to the channel. So in this video, I am looking for your stories. I am looking for your stories about who you think is, now no names mentioned, who you think is the biggest agricultural machinery or tractor nut or nerd that you know. That sort of person that would, take a bus through 4 or 5 different towns just to see a big mowing in a field for a half an hour, something like that. That person that maybe spends every Saturday and their weekend, their days off, driving around all the local machinery dealerships just to look at all the machines they have in the yard. That's what I'm looking for. And what is it that drives these people who are complete and utter fans or nerds of farm machinery? Now, I have to admit, I am obviously, I don't know if I call myself a nerd, but I am a fan. I am a bit of a nut, as most of you guys watching this channel are, and most of my friends who are involved in the farm machinery business or who are farmers are. Anyone who likes collecting tractors, someone that just goes that extra mile. And in a few minutes, I'm going to tell you a story from a good few years ago about someone in my locality who was, something of a well-known nut when it came to farm machinery. But yeah, it is a psychological thing. Obviously, I grew up in the farm machinery world. I was involved in it every single day, and for me, it was just normal. I didn't have to go out of my way to find, machinery working because I was involved in it. I got my fix every day, every weekend, as most farmers' sons would. But it's that person that, didn't have that outlet, didn't grow up on a farm, wasn't involved in it, but they still had a huge love for it. And they would travel around all the different farmers and all the different dealerships in their locality to, get a look at machines working, whether it's 30 or 40 years ago or whether it's now, and they're going out taking pictures and stuff like that. But yeah, it's great to see, and there's a lot of people out there who love farm machinery. And I grew up, I had a love of aircraft, so I used to go at the weekends to the local airport or to the local strip, and I just watch aircraft taking off and landing. And that was I was a bit of a nut when it came to that. But I'll tell you a story now about from about 30 years ago. I was probably around 18 years of age, something around 18 years of age. So maybe a little over 30 years ago or under 30 years ago. It was one Saturday evening, and this field now is in a town not far from me, across the gates from a venue of probably Ireland's largest outdoor concert venue. So I'm sure people know exactly where I'm talking about. Anyone that's, familiar with Ireland or where I live, there's an outdoor concert venue not far from me, and right across from it are several tillage fields. And we used to, guys I work for used to farm these fields. But there's one particular field, and it's kind of close to a housing estate. And it's about, I suppose it was probably about 25 acres at the time. There's a little bit gone out of it now from development and stuff. But there was a lovely big hill up the back and a good strong pull up a hill. And it was heavy, heavy ground. And I went into it one evening at about 6 o'clock to start ploughing it. And there's a guy from the local area who was a well-known tractor fan who used to just appear everywhere and anywhere to take a look at, farm machinery working. Well, I pulled in about 6 o'clock, and I had started on the ditch furthest away from the housing estate. And of course, he appeared out, no big shock. He appeared out and walked into the middle of the field and stood at the edge of the furrow where I was ploughing up and down. And, I stopped, as I always did, and asked, did he want to jump in or whatever? But no, he was happy enough standing back, watching everything that was going on. So as the tractor and the plough would go up the field, he'd take a couple of steps back. And then as it came back down the field, he kept taking another couple of steps back. So every time the tractor would pass by, he'd just take a couple of steps back from the furrow wall, and he'd watch it come past. And you have to remember that this was in the days before, video phones, before camera phones. So he just was standing there, taking it all in, just watching the tractor going up and down the field, ploughing. As far as I remember, it was a John Deere 4350 with a 4 or 5 for a reversal plough. I just can't remember, but it was definitely a 4350. And as I said, heavy field, good strong pull up the field. So it would have been, a good view. It would have made a great video at the time if there was camera phones around. It would have made a great video. But anyway, this particular chap just went with the flow for, he was there, just took a couple of steps back. So came about 9 o'clock or so, it was starting to get dark, and I remember food came to the field to me, and I stopped at the bottom of the headland for 15 or 20 minutes, and you thought maybe he might have moved away at that stage, but no, he stood there and he waited for the action to get going again. So off I went again, and I'd say by about 10 o'clock came, it was dark at this stage, and I came back down the field in one run, and he was gone. So he obviously tired, whatever, had enough, and went home. So I continued on working. This was back in the day when, as a young lad, you'd work for free and you'd work night and day. So I worked from one end of the field to the other, and I remember I finished the field something around 1 o'clock in the morning, 1:30, started doing the headlands. And as I said, now the housing estate was just probably a small field in between that field and the housing estate. And I started, now headlands on that field would probably have taken an hour and a half. So I was probably there till at least 2 o'clock, a little bit longer than 2 o'clock. And I remember doing the last run of the headland along the ditch at the housing estate, and just out of the corner of my eye, I caught something, and it was something glowing in the hedge. And it was, when I looked closer, it was a cigarette. So there this lad was, sitting in the ditch at 2:30 in the morning with a cigarette in his hand and a can of Budweiser, still watching the tractor going up and down the field. And he'd made a little seat for himself, and he was sitting there, happy as Larry, just watching the tractor drive up and down the field. So look, that's my story. I just thought it was, this was above and beyond. Like, there's no way I would do that, not for love or money. And this is probably in the springtime. It would have been, the weather would have been reasonably okay, but it certainly wasn't warm. But he was obviously wrapped up well, sitting there with a cigarette in his hand and a can of Budweiser, just watching the performance. I suppose when you look at it, there's people out there today who sit up at night watching videos on YouTube of machines working, with a cigarette in their hand maybe and a can of Budweiser. So what's the difference? He was watching it in real life, with the real sounds and with the birds around him in a good, healthy environment. So that's my story. So I want to compile a list of stories of people you knew. Now, you don't have to name anyone. Please don't name anyone. Don't name or shame anyone, unless they're okay with it. But that is my story. So I want to hear your stories of that local guy or the girl, even, whatever, who went to exceptional lengths to, get their fix. Either, getting up in the cab for the whole day with you, or standing there videoing for the whole day, or driving to the other side of the country just to see a particular type of machine working. I want to hear your stories. I'll be back next week. I'm in the middle of filming a big video, a pretty long video on a very, very unique machine that very, very few people have heard of. A very, very unique, one-off, very special machine that not many people have heard of. And it has taken a good lot of research to get this video done. I'd hope to have it out this weekend, but mechanical issues with various vehicles in my family have caused me to delay things a little bit this week. So things have been busy. It's just been one of those weeks where everything has gone wrong. Anyway, I will be back with a regular video next week. This is just a little stocking filler for this week. I wasn't going to let the week come by with a video being put out. So please drop a comment in the comment section, and let me know your stories. Okay, thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you all next week.